Whenever people start ranking the best MCU movies, the Winter Soldier is always near the top. And not near the top of the Captain America movies, near the top of all of them. So the question is it actually that good? Or did everyone just collectively decide that the elevator fight scene counts as 10 extra points?
Before we get started, does anyone want to get out?
This is one of those movies that almost feels like it shouldn't work on paper. Because the premise is basically, take the squarest Boy Scout in the Marvel Universe, drop him into a world of surveillance, secrets, and moral gray areas, and then force him to ask the one question that superhero movies usually don't want their heroes asking. Okay, but who watches the Watchers? And the reason the Winter Soldier hits so hard isn't just the action. Although, yeah, the action is absolutely insane. It's that the movie actually commits to that tension. Steve Rogers isn't just fighting bad guys. He's fighting the idea that safety is worth surrendering your freedom. Plus, it's got probably the best friend-turned-enemy storyline in the MCU. So, is it one of the best action movies ever? Is it better than the first Captain America movie? Let's find out. Welcome back to The Rank. I'm John, and just a quick heads up on format. I'll hit a handful of behind-the-scenes facts called the Potent Notables, then I'll do the movie overview with spoilers, and I'll finish by ranking the movie across 10 categories. And today I'll be ranking Captain America: The Winter Soldier, the 2014 MCU action movie starring Chris Evans, Sebastian Stan, Scarlett Johansson, Anthony Mackie, Robert Redford, and Samuel L. Jackson. Based on the comics by Joe Simon and Jack Kirby, with a screenplay written by Christopher Marcus and Stephen McFeely, and directed by Joe and Anthony Russo. Alright, let's see how this one stacks up, starting with the Potent Notables.
Potent Notables.
As always, the Potent Notables start with the box office. Captain America: The Winter Soldier made $259.8 million domestically and $454.7 million internationally, for a worldwide total of $714.4 million. And this was all against a budget of $170 million. So, it made some money. Now, behind the camera, Kevin Feige selected Joe and Anthony Russo to direct the movie, based largely on 2 back-to-back episodes of Community. They directed Season 2, Episode 23 and 24, A Fistful of Paintballs and a few paintballs more. And Feige was so impressed with the action and the pacing of those episodes that he became convinced that they could handle a large-scale Marvel film. The Russos also took an unusual approach to a Marvel movie. They minimized the use of visual effects as much as possible. And Anthony Mackie explained this by saying that the goal was to keep the film grounded in practical action. Or as he put it, if they could build it, they built it. If we could do it, we did it. They wanted to do as little CGI as possible, which is a big part of why the movie feels more like a grounded political thriller than a typical superhero spectacle. And speaking of Anthony Mackie, his role as Sam Wilson, or Falcon, actually came about because he persistently emailed Marvel asking to play any character in one of their films. And the studio kept replying that they would reach out in due time. But the emails eventually caught the attention of Kevin Feige, who offered him the role. Mackie also said he was excited to play Falcon, partly because it gave African-American kids another black superhero in the MCU besides War Machine in the Iron Man films. However, he was less enthusiastic about the costume design. Mackie wanted the classic red spandex look from the comics, but the film instead used the more tactical version from Marvel's Ultimate Universe, portraying Falcon as a special operations soldier, equipped with goggles and a winged flight harness. Another actor who had a personal reason for joining the film was Robert Redford. Redford said he took the role because his grandchildren were big fans of Marvel movies, and he wanted them to see him in one. It's kind of cute. Also must be cool to have that much juice in Hollywood that you can just be like, I want to do this, so give me a role, because my grandchildren can see me in it. Meanwhile, Sebastian Stan had actually signed a 9-movie contract with Marvel. But even so, when production on The Winter Soldier began, he had no idea which films he would appear in, and according to him, he didn't even know that he was going to be the title character until Comic-Con in San Diego in 2013. There are also several small real-life connections to the film. In the movie, Nick Fury tells a story about how his grandfather was an elevator operator, which mirrors real life. Samuel L. Jackson's grandfather actually had that exact job. And the movie also sneaks in several references to real history and Marvel lore. Black Widow mentions Operation Paperclip, which was a real program run by the Office of Strategic Services after World War II that brought more than 1,500 German scientists and engineers to the United States. And the Marvel lore is a quick Marvel Comics reference where Black Widow briefly mentions a Canadian agency called Department H, which in the comics is responsible for experimenting on Wolverine and bonding adamantium to his skeleton, as well as creating the Canadian superhero team Alpha Flight. Who knows? Maybe that reference will pay off someday. But those are the potent notables. Let's go to the movie overview. So for those of you who have made it this far, you know this is a good movie. As a matter of fact, I bet all of you remember the opening scene vividly. We meet Sam Wilson, the guy who will eventually take the shield from Cap. He's running around the Lincoln Memorial reflecting pool, and we see Captain America seemingly sprinting past him saying, "On your left." And it happens a couple more times on screen, but it feels like it's probably happened even more times than that. It's an awesome opening. It's immediately playful. And it's fun because a lot of times action movies open with an action scene to gear you up. And in this one, it just says, we're confident in what we got to show you. So just have a little fun here. So Sam and Steve are going to start a little friendship here, especially after Steve finds out that Sam is counseling veterans with PTSD. But the friendship vibes are going to get cut off by Black Widow, who shows up in her Corvette to pick up a fossil. Of course, she's picking him up to give us our opening action scene. And again, they could have started with this, but I really like that they chose not to. So what's going on? There's some S.H.I.E.L.D. ship that's trespassing in some other country's waters and it got hijacked. They need to rescue the hostages and take out the pirates. And this is where we're going to get to see Captain America in action. Now, where the first movie and the Avengers movie sort of shows him as strong and righteous and a good leader, this movie officially makes him a badass. And it starts right here. He is just kicking everyone's ass on the ship. Personally, I loved when they would show him kick a bad guy and the dude would just go flying. But this scene isn't just to establish Captain America as a badass. We're going to see Black Widow kicking ass as well, and everything seems to be going according to Cap's plan. But we're going to see the S.H.I.E.L.D. agent in charge, Sitwell, seeming kind of shifty, and Black Widow trying to capture information for Fury. Basically, that people seem to have different missions. The point here is that Steve Rogers is an honest, straight-up type of guy, so this doesn't sit well with him. And when he gets back to debrief with Fury, he's not going to hide it. Fury tries to explain the compartmentalization, but Cap's not buying it. So Fury's going to try to win Steve over by letting him in on Project Insight, which is apparently just 3 giant helicarriers that would go around targeting expected bad guys. And this is where we're going to get what Captain America is really about. He gets some great lines here, with Fury defending this by saying it's great. It puts them way ahead of the curve. And Steve's going to be like, by holding a gun to everyone on Earth and calling it protection. Or, thought the punishment came after the crime. Or, this isn't freedom, this is fear. And it's just great stuff and it makes you align with him as the hero. And the next thing we're going to do is we're going to see Steve narcissistically visit a Smithsonian exhibit that's all about him, which is, I suppose, to give context to the people who maybe haven't seen the first movie. We're also going to learn that Peggy, Steve's crush from the first movie, is not only still alive, but was one of the original founders of S.H.I.E.L.D. And this is the only reason why he's even willing to be a part of it, which is what he tells her as he sits next to her in her hospital bed. But it's great because now we have the motivation for why he would be a part of this secretive organization. But now we're going to meet some of the other people involved with S.H.I.E.L.D. Specifically, Secretary Pierce, Fury's boss. And he answers to something called the World Council. So I guess S.H.I.E.L.D. isn't an American organization, but like a world military organization that's based in the US. But anyway, Cap's argument against Project Insight seems to have carried some sway with Fury, because he's going to tell Secretary Pierce that he thinks Project Insight should be delayed. And what Fury doesn't know is that this is going to directly lead to an attempt on his life, which is, once again, an awesome action sequence. Now, Fury's car is going to get messed up, and I have to say, I want his crazy tech SUV. He's got a minigun that comes out of the center console. Now, the real question is, how many cup holders does it have then? But really, there's just so much crazy tech happening in this scene. Like, the way he gets away, ultimately, is by using some crazy burrowing laser thing that lets him burrow a tunnel through his car, through the pavement, into the ground. And actually, who he's getting away from is a brand new baddie as well. We get to meet the namesake of the title, the Winter Soldier. Him and his metal arm, who was hired to kill Fury. Of course, he wasn't able to because Fury got away with the laser burrowing thing. But what that ends up meaning is that Fury is going to bring Winter Soldier right to Rogers' home. But before that happens, he's going to be sitting there talking to Steve. He's telling him about how he doesn't trust anyone and that Steve shouldn't either. And then he's going to give him a giant USB stick and then get shot by the Winter Soldier. Now, I remember watching this in the theater and I absolutely bought that Fury was dead. Maybe I'm gullible. But hey, Black Widow and Captain America both believed he was really killed too, right? Now, after Fury's death, Cap is going to meet with Pierce and Pierce is going to start subtly building a case against Fury. Now, apparently Fury hired the pirates that hijacked that S.H.I.E.L.D. ship from the first action scene, but Captain America really doesn't give in to Pierce's logic here. So Pierce is going to change tacks. He's going to be like, Fury's my best friend. He even goes as far as saying, somebody murdered my friend, and I'm going to find out why. But despite all this, Captain America does not give up what Fury said to him in his apartment, which leads us to the epic elevator scene, which in my opinion is one of the most iconic fight scenes in the MCU, and makes Captain America even more of a badass. I mean, he gets some great one-liners in this movie, but one of my favorites is during this fight scene when the main bad guy in this group is like, Cap, it's not personal. And he responds, kind of feels personal. But because of all this, the World Council is going to tell Pierce they're removing the delay on Project Insight. And while he's being told off by the World Council, Cap and Black Widow are out there trying to figure out what's going on. And I have to say that their back and forth throughout the movie, and in these scenes in particular, are a lot of fun. Like when she tells him to kiss her because PDA makes people feel uncomfortable, and then later asks if it was his first kiss in 95 years. And Steve just goes, that bad, huh? But either way, they're going to end up in the basic training grounds that Rogers was at when he became Captain America. And it was subsequently used as a S.H.I.E.L.D. facility and then eventually abandoned. The reality is that there's just so much going on in this movie, but this part to me always felt a little eh. We find out that Zola, the Red Skull's right-hand scientist in the first movie, was recruited by S.H.I.E.L.D., and then his consciousness was apparently uploaded to a whole bunch of old IBM computers. And then apparently he helped orchestrate the infection of Hydra into S.H.I.E.L.D. The story in this exposition is fun and interesting, but the execution of it by using Zola always felt a little Bond villainy to me. Though they do cover it decently by having Zola say that he's basically just buying time so that a missile can come and kill them all, which effectively kills himself too. Naturally though, Cap and Black Widow are okay. Not that easy to kill a super soldier. But this is where we find out that Pierce is definitely in on it, because he's gonna meet with the Winter Soldier in his home, and then just to hammer his villainy home, he ends up killing his maid because she just happened to walk in on them talking. So not just a little evil, super evil. Anyway, Black Widow and Captain America are gonna head to Sam Wilson's house to find a place to lay low. But Sam doesn't just want to help them out with a place to stay, he wants in on the action. Heck, he was a PJ in the Air Force after all. Now, for those of you who don't know, pararescue and combat controllers in the Air Force are the Air Force's special forces. Essentially the equivalent to Navy SEALs and Army Rangers. Anyway, he basically shows a picture of himself wearing wings, and that makes them all decide that instead of just kidnapping Sitwell, which would be way too hard, they should steal the last of these prototype wingsuits from an army fort, because that would be way easier. Then they just sort of go ahead and kidnap Sitwell anyway, without ever having shown us how they got the wingsuit out of the army base. And by the way, they kidnap him after his meeting with Gary Shandling, which was fun to find out that the nemesis to Tony Stark's Iron Man was actually Hydra. Anyway, no need to dwell on that though, right? I mean, the point is that they got the Falcon now, and he's gonna help them scare a confession out of Sitwell. How? Well, Black Widow's gonna kick him off the top of a skyscraper, and then Falcon is gonna catch him on the way down. I mean, what if he missed, right? I don't know. Seems like poor planning, but whatever. It worked. They do get what they need from him, but they're clearly not gonna let you die. And he makes that point before they kick him off the building. So it seems like maybe his resolve would have lasted longer, but you know, I also get it. It doesn't matter though, because as they're driving, the Winter Soldier is gonna grab Sitwell out of their car and throw him across the highway into an oncoming semi-truck. And then we head on to another amazing action sequence. And there's a lot of psychological work being done here with the Winter Soldier as well. He's scary and menacing. We even have a scene where he shows up over Black Widow's shoulder after he's already shot her, and we get this loud sound of warning for the audience. And it's almost like a jump scare. And Black Widow, Winter Soldier, and Captain America all get to look like badasses in this scene. And you know, Falcon too, but not as much. Like when Black Widow jumps off the bridge and then grappling hooks the underneath of the bridge and spins back around and just lands on her feet and keeps running. It's just awesome. But really the point of this whole scene is to reveal that the Winter Soldier is really Bucky. Now we're gonna get flashbacks to let us know how Bucky became the Winter Soldier. But before that, Captain America and Black Widow are going to get captured. Now, the Winter Soldier has been straight up trying to kill them for the past 15 minutes. But when they're surrounded by soldiers with guns, they're just like, hey, freeze! Now, they try to excuse this away by showing news helicopters above, but, you know, come on. We've still got more reveals coming, though. Maria Hill, Fury's agent, has infiltrated the van that is carrying Black Widow and Captain America, and she breaks them out with the same laser burrowing thing. And she's gonna bring them to see a very alive Nick Fury. Of course, Fury was on to something being up with Project Insight for a while. This was why he hired pirates to hijack his ship. We also get a good line about Pierce. Fury is going to say that Pierce declined the Nobel Peace Prize because Pierce said, peace wasn't an award, it's a responsibility. And then Fury's gonna say, you see, it's stuff like this that gives me trust issues, which is a good line. Now, Fury's got a plan, but Steve is gonna be like, nope, we're doing my plan, which is that S.H.I.E.L.D. and Hydra are both going down. No more of either. And the plan is to make the helicarriers of Project Insight have new targets. Instead of the 20 million people that they're planning on killing, which I guess would all be political dissidents, instead they're gonna have the helicarriers target each other and take themselves down. But they're gonna have to infiltrate S.H.I.E.L.D. headquarters to do this. Now they're actually gonna do it fairly easily because they're all in there seemingly without a problem at all. Like Maria Hill gets to a spot in the building where basically just nobody fucks with her. And Captain America is gonna give a rousing speech over the PA system, telling everyone that Hydra has infiltrated S.H.I.E.L.D. and that they need to fight back. And he's gonna say, the price of freedom is high, but it's a price I'm willing to pay. And maybe I'm the only one, but I'm willing to bet that I'm not. And wouldn't you know it, he gets through to a bunch of people, which I know it kind of sounds like I'm shitting on it, but I'll be the first to admit that I did enjoy it. Now, Black Widow is gonna infiltrate Pierce's office by posing as a World Council member with some Mission Impossible tech. Captain America and Falcon are going to go after the helicarriers. Now, the Winter Soldier is going to try to stop them and effectively does stop Falcon by ripping off one of his wings. But he's going to have to contend with Cap, which won't be easy for him. Eventually, Black Widow is going to get the best of Pierce, and then Fury is going to show up. And their plan is to release all of S.H.I.E.L.D. secrets to the internet, which also kills Black Widow's secrets. But she's willing to do it. And eventually, Pierce is going to end up being killed, and his dying words are going to be, "Hail Hydra." I mean, that's commitment, man. Now, Steve, after getting the thingies into the thingy, is going to refuse to keep fighting Bucky as the helicarrier is going down. The epic moment here being when he tells Bucky that he's his friend, and Bucky replying, "You're just my mission." And then Steve says, "Well then finish it, because I'm with you till the end of the line." Which harkens back to a flashback from earlier, to a younger, much shorter, much skinnier Steve Rogers. And this works on Bucky. He's gonna save Steve from drowning and then walk away, which was like a really satisfying scene. Now we're gonna end the movie with Fury trying to recruit Steve and Sam to help him hunt down the rest of Hydra, because not all the rats went down with the ship. They both decline though. Steve because he's gonna go looking for Bucky, and Sam because he's gonna help Steve, even though Steve says he doesn't need to. Gary Shandling gets arrested. Maria Hill has moved on to work at Stark. Black Widow is going to testify before Congress, but in the end, she says that she's going to spend some time finding a new identity. And that's where it ends, and what a fun freaking ride it was. But it's Marvel, so we got a mid-credit scene and an end-credit scene. Now, the mid-credit scene is going to show us Herr Strucker and the fact that he has Loki's scepter. He's also apparently got Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch in cages. It was kind of a mediocre scene, to be honest, though it might have been fun at the time. The end credit scene was better. We see Bucky realizing who he is because he visits the Captain America exhibit at the Smithsonian, which is what Captain America went to earlier in the film. But that's the whole movie. Let's find out how it ranked.
Oh, wait.
So the rank is where I rank the movie based on 10 categories: story, acting, originality, action sequences, film coherence, hero appeal, villain appeal / hatred, supporting characters appeal, the final showdown, and my rank. I rank it on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being the worst, 5 being the best. And before I dive into the rankings, I just want to say if you're enjoying this episode, please leave a like down below. It really does help me out. But without further ado, the first category is story. Basically, the story is that Hydra thinks they finally found the moment after 70 years of hiding to reveal themselves and take over the world. There's a lot more going on, but that's the crux. It's certainly entertaining and fun, but Hydra's motivation never really felt that defined to me. I gave it a 4. So that brings us to acting. Really good, especially considering how many parts there were. I can't imagine a better Steve Rogers than Chris Evans. Scarlett was in peak form as Black Widow. There's really not much to complain about here, though some performances did feel stiff, but none of the main players did. I gave it a 4.25. So that brings us to originality. So the main focus of originality would normally be, does it stand on its own? As in, do you need to have seen the previous movie in the franchise to understand this one? But before we get into that, I wanted to mention that taking a superhero movie and making it a political spy action thriller was definitely original. So some points for that. I kept trying to think if I would have needed the previous movie to know what was going on, especially for the explanation of Hydra in this one. And I think I would have been okay just believing that it was just some evil organization. But it did feel like Zola and the explanation would have felt out of place. So I went with a 3.25, mostly because of the genre bending with superhero and action spy thriller. So that brings us to action sequences. I don't think you could go anywhere less than 5 on this. Everything is incredible. I almost wish I could go above a 5. And I really think that it helps that not all the battles were CGI. So that brings us to film coherence. I think the biggest gap here is just the reliance on Hydra just being evil. Like, they wanted order and to protect people, but they had to kill 20 million to do it. It just felt a little weak. And I get it, it's just like they just wanted power, right? So you don't necessarily need a ton of motivation there to want to rule the world, right? Also, how was getting the wingsuit out of an army base easier than kidnapping Sitwell? And why did you need to do that first? And then they don't even show it. And finally, it doesn't make any sense that Cap and Black Widow got captured instead of killed. Other than those, I thought they did really well with coherence. I gave it a 3.75. So that brings us to hero appeal. Another super easy 5. It's Captain America, Steve Rogers. What else do you need? And then that brings us to villain appeal / hatred. So the ultimate villain is Pierce, and the ancillary villain is the Winter Soldier. So I decided to rank this category with Pierce, and he's an excellent villain. He's a villain in hiding, sort of, and an intellectual one, instead of a physically imposing one. I gave him a 4.25, which brings us to supporting characters appeal. So because I didn't rank the Winter Soldier as the villain for this one, he shows up here, as does Fury and Black Widow and Sam Wilson. Anyway, it's another easy 5. And that brings us to the final showdown. Now, interestingly, the final showdown is actually between the hero and the sub-villain. Now, you could say it's between Black Widow, Fury, and Pierce, but you know it's not. And the final fight between Bucky and Steve is excellent, including when Steve refuses to fight. I gave it a 5. And that brings us to the final category, which is my rank. This is absolutely one of my favorite MCU movies, making me just like almost everyone else. But whatever, there's a reason people love it. I don't care if Hydra doesn't fully work because every other scene does, and the action is incredible. I gave it a 5. So that puts the total for Captain America the Winter Soldier at a 44.5, which puts it in the tier Supreme Cinema. It actually ended up 0.1 points below the Avengers and just 0.25 points above Fantastic Four First Steps, which actually ranks it 3rd all time for the MCU so far, with Iron Man being number 1 by 0.025 points over the Avengers. Now, if you're ranking along with me here, please put your score in the comments. But thanks for listening and or watching. Check out my other action movie rankings or any of my other movie or sitcom ranking episodes on this channel. Remember to subscribe, comment, and like. You can check out my rankings on my website at therankpodcast.com, where you can also email me at john@therankpodcast.com. And if you really want to support the show, you can become a patron at patreon.com/therankpodcast. So, auf Wiedersehen. So what's going on? So there's cut. So what's going on? Cut. So what's going on? There's some S.H.I.E.L.D. ship. Cut.
Take 3.
So what's going on? There's some S.H.I.E.L.D. ship. Whoa. Okay. Great.
No, it's not great.
So what's going on? There's some S.H.I.E.L.D.
We're gonna be here a while.